invest in being a woman, in feeling a woman. Why are we trying to hide all these signs of age and freeze ourselves to the age of 20? The impact, the legacy that we leave is the imprint, the emotional imprint that we leave on people. And that's what we should be spending more time on.
Welcome to the Hot Flash Health Podcast, where we're dishing out unfiltered truths about menopause with a side of sass and a sprinkle of grass.
Get ready to dive into the wild world of hot flashes, mood swings, and all of the other joys of being a queen eater.
This ain't your grandma's podcast. No, we are here to talk our bodies, our fears, our passions, our desires, all while navigating this wild roller coaster ride of menopause.
So grab a glass of wine,
For free.
kick back, relax, and let's enjoy this hot flash wave together.
I'm Courtney Mamusha, and alongside me is my fabulous co-host, Dawn Fable.
We're just two outspoken broads who like to call it how it is.
Now, without further ado, let's kick off today's episode.
Today on Hot Flash Health, we are so thrilled to welcome a truly transformative voice in women's empowerment and healing. Chen Lizra, founder of the Power of Somatic Intelligence. She's been featured on some pretty big deal things: Oprah Daily, the New York Times, Cosmopolitan, and more. Chen is an award-winning somatic coach, TED speaker, and trauma healing pioneer. She has a groundbreaking method rooted in embodiment practices and her signature 5 elements of somatic intelligence. She really helps women reconnect with their bodies, release their emotional wounds, and reclaim our inner power, especially during menopause. This is a time of profound transition. Chen's work offers women a powerful path to navigate change with resilience, clarity, and self-truth. She is on a mission, like the rest of us, to help women break free from societal expectations and really live in alignment with their truth, to celebrate women during and after menopause with their lifestyle, sexuality, empowerment, and aging well. Please welcome the incredible Chen Lizra to Hot Flash Health. We're so happy to have you.
Thank you so much for inviting me to the podcast. It's an honor to be here.
Hey, well, your work on somatic intelligence and divine feminine energy really has empowered so many from trauma to become more embodied, right? So can you give us a little overview of what that work is about and how important it is to women on their menopause journey, not only journey in life?
Yeah, so let's start with the fact that we carry 70%, like it's known that 70% of adults in the modern world today carry trauma. So to begin with, we're starting with nervous systems that are very activated, and we're not feeling in many ways great about ourselves. And society has programmed into us constantly looking at ourselves and our flaws. And this is what advertising is all about, so that we're going to need those products, right? When you visit a place like, let's say, Cuba, that doesn't have any advertising, and you spend a month in a country where you're really just feeling yourself, you feel quite different, and you see what it's like when a body image is not imposed on you, where it should be a perfect kind of way. Now, with menopause, there's many changes that we experience, from wrinkles to the change in metabolism, to how the skin looks, to dryness in the vagina, to many different things that can affect how we're feeling at work, how we're feeling in our relationships, our confidence, our self-worth. There's so much that can be impacted. So it's important that we keep working on ourselves and we heal, first of all, old wounds. Because with the time, one of the things that happens, and I think this is one of the things that society is sick with, is that we're so busy trying to look 20, frozen forever. If I could just get rid of these wrinkles and just put some Botox and just do a procedure and just do this, and I could just look the way I looked. But that doesn't allow us to age gracefully. That doesn't allow us to come to terms with the changes that lead at the end to death. And death is a natural thing that comes, that we have to prepare for, right? We're trying to freeze ourselves instead of accepting that with age comes, like, beautiful gifts arrive, right? The wisdom, the intuition, the higher intuition, the grounding, that there's something that comes with age if you can embrace it. So for me, it's a lot about journeying in and doing the inner work so that we can let go of that and really age gracefully and feel beautiful and gorgeous about ourselves, not to mention sexy.
You know, they so often say that you really need to heal within to embody that beauty on the outside. And I think that's what you've really just spoken to. But, you know, there's such a fine line in finding that balance. You know, of course, we women, I think, naturally are vain. Then, of course, you have all of the societal pressure. So, you know, the balance of doing a little Botox here and there and getting a highlight. And I just got a blepharoplasty on my eyes because it was something that had bothered me for a long period of time. And I'm 47 years old. If something has bothered me this long, I want to take charge to do something like that to give me the confidence. But there is such a fine line. So I think that what you bring up is really interesting. You talk so much
Let me just jump in here for just 1 second and say something about that, because you made a very important point here that is actually really important to address, is that it's not about also shaming people who want to change something. Right? It's not about saying like, oh, shame on you. You did Botox. Oh, you got rid of your wrinkles. It's not about shaming, but there is a fine line between learning to love yourself and never loving what you have. Right? When you reach that peace inside, it's not about, okay, let's say you have a certain nose and you go like, you know what, I never loved it. I want a different one. And you get a nose job and you're happy for the rest of your life and you die happy. But that's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about that obsession that you're never happy with who you are, that you look in the mirror and you don't love what you have. And I can't even tell you how many women, when I'm doing work with them, and there's a practice that I do where they look in the mirror and they have to love what they have. And they go like, oh, I can't look at that. Can't be with that. So you can't be with yourself. You can't love yourself, you know, and love starts first of all with you loving you. And you see that also reflect into relationships. For example, if you don't love yourself, how can you be loved in a divine way? Because if someone gives you a beautiful compliment, says, oh, you're gorgeous, like, oh, if I didn't have these wrinkles, or oh, I looked better 10 years ago, and you're constantly brushing it off, you're not really receiving that love, that affection, right? So it really starts with loving what we have.
I love that. You know, we oftentimes say on this podcast that menopause and middle-aged life is such an awakening. You know, it's an awakening to embrace that next chapter of our lives and embrace our beauty and embrace the boundaries that we're setting and embrace the healing that we have. You know, your work is emphasizing the beauty of graceful aging, which is so wonderful. What, in your opinion, does aging gracefully mean? And what can we, as women going through menopause, expect that aging gracefully to look like?
Well, I think that, like I said before, the key is loving what you have. And not what you want to have, not what you used to have. It's like really loving what you have. And loving what you have is a journey. Loving what you have doesn't mean also that you can't change anything. It doesn't mean, oh, I should be fat and then I should just love it fat. And it's like, it depends on what it is that you also want. But it's about reaching that point where you feel whole, whatever that whole looks like, that you love what you have. But you're not always just unhappy with what you have. And I think that a big part of it is, for me, is about meeting parts of yourself and claiming them back. Like, you know, for example, if your mom or dad constantly told you that your nose is big, and you constantly walk around the world and you feel like there's something wrong with you because your nose is big, and maybe it's not even that big, but someone, you know, said it, or someone wasn't present in your life, you know, and no one criticized you, but they weren't present in your life. And now as a result, you didn't feel important enough. You didn't get the attention and love that you needed. So where is that self-love coming from? What defines that self-love, right? So to me, aging gracefully is about something that's more inner. It's less outer, right? With the age, things change. And if we're too dependent on the outer, we're kind of missing on the qualities. And the qualities, you know, my grandma died and she was this phenomenal woman. She inspired so much of me. I suffered myself 10 years of suicidal thoughts because of my mom's mental illness, because it was just so hard to be around her mental illness and what it did to me. And my grandma was the one that gave me so much love and affection, and kind of, you know, stepped in like a mother for the mother that I didn't have, and tried to give me as much as I could to strengthen me so I will not give up. And I suffered, she didn't even know it, but I suffered 10 years of suicidal thoughts. And I always say that she was my lighthouse, because feeling what I felt from her is what gave me the hope that there was something more than what I was experiencing, and I was fighting for it as a result. And when she died, I can tell you one thing for sure: there were so many people that she touched with who she was being, the kind of love that she gave, and the impact that she had in her community, that the cemetery was so full, there wasn't place for people. And I can tell you one thing for sure: it didn't say on her gravestone, was skinny and beautiful. What people cared about wasn't, she was actually really fat. And it's like she had this like big fat body. And it's like when you would fall into her, it was like so comforting to be in her fat body. That go like, when I think of women who are trying to be so thin today, I go like, if my grandma was thin, it would feel different. It would be so comforting. There's some comfort in that. She was never busy with that. There was something so beautiful about her. And again, I'm not shaming anybody who's skinny. There are women who are also not just want to be skinny, which is complete. I'm super skinny, but it's like, I'm just saying that there's something so beautiful about the being, right? It's like the inward journey is really like what inspires others. It's when we touch others, is we touch them not by how we look, we touch them by who we're being with them. The impact that we leave, the inspiration behind, the legacy behind us is not, no one's going to say, oh my God, that person left a legacy because they look so good. It left an impact on me, right? The impact, the legacy that we leave is the imprint, the emotional imprint that we leave on people. And that's what we should be spending more time on. And that's also what makes us feel good about ourselves while learning to accept what is not perfect about us. We all have great things about us and not so great things about us. And if we try to reject our shadow and just accept our light, we're not complete. We're not whole. So when I know the things that are not great about me, and there are things that are definitely not great. It's like we all have them. But I've learned to kind of hug them and say, okay, yeah, I can't say, oh, I love this, but I don't want this. All of it is me. Then can I learn to love my shadow as well? The things that are not so great. Be like, okay, I'm not so great here, but it's okay. I can love that. I can accept that.
Yeah, I think that that's amazing. And so much of what you're saying is resonating with me, right? My mom was always like, if you eat that, you're going to have thunder thighs. And so, like, since that, I've been really self conscious about my thighs and just getting bigger. And then I fast forward to, kind of seeing both of my parents die, and they were skinny at the end, So I was like, God, it doesn't matter if you like enjoy life, because I feel like towards the end of your time, like your body is just shutting down and becoming skinnier and, whatever, ready for its next transition. I did want to touch upon, low self-esteem and how that really plays into a lot of us. And obviously, we kind of started off with, we're going through menopause and we're losing, some of us are losing our hair, our weight's changing. I can't remember shit, honestly. Self-doubt, like, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? So you kind of touched upon this. I love that you love the things that are great about you and really embrace the things that you don't love about you. But what are some other ways that people like us who are changing constantly can take low self-esteem and like change that into more of a understandable, forgiving experience that we're going through, so it really doesn't impact our family, our lives, our friendships, our children's view on us, our appetite? I mean, are there any other tips that you might have for really changing that frown to upside down?
So here's the biggest secret, the best secret to all of this is that as we age, we get more and more disconnected from our body and to that juiciness inside us. I got very lucky. I'm 53, and people don't believe me when I say that. And I got very lucky when, at 30, I went to Cuba and I got to train through Cuban dance for, 15 years and learned how to connect with the 5 elements that you mentioned before. One of them is the sabrosura. And the sabrosura is a divine feminine. And the rest of them are, for example, the elegance and how to carry your body with elegance and intention. Or, the seduction. For those of you who saw the TED Talk, and if you didn't, you can watch it afterwards, the power of seduction, our everyday life. And what I've learned is how we carry ourselves, how we sit, how we stand in a way that we activate that feeling where you feel incredible about yourself. And it's not something that fades with age. It's something that you can feel at any age. It's not just I'm 20, so I feel great because my boobs are up and my butt is up and I feel great. One, you have to invest in your body. I look the way I do because I invest in it. And I don't mean invest in Botox. I mean, like I'm investing in, I do Pilates, I dance every week. I'm always connected to that young energy in my body. It's something that I'm putting intentionally energy into it in my balance of the week. There's always those things. And I keep coming back to the sabrosura, to the seduction. When you're seducing, when you're able to seduce, and I'm not saying that so that women can go to bars and start seducing. It's not about that. So you could be standing, I mean, if you want to, you can, but it's not about that. But if you're just like able to feel that in your body, even in front of the mirror, and be able to behave from that, it requires an inner journey of you feeling that amazing about yourself, that you feel that you have that power. Being able to tap in that power inside of you, do that in front of the mirror every day, not even for someone. If you're able to now, okay, yes, and you're able to tap into that yourself, you have to feel amazing about yourself. You know, in seduction, for example, there's what we call rejection resilience. So for me to be able to seduce, again, it's not about someone, to have that power of seduction, me to be able to tap into that power of seduction, to be able to tap into my sabrosura and be that feminine and speak it out and not be afraid, to be that, you know, feminine and seductive and presence and present and elegant, that gives us a feeling of how we feel about ourselves, which is magical. Most people get to the point where they go like, well, I had the babies and now I feel like kind of like I lost it, you know, and it's like, and I'm doing my work. And it's like, and you're in your pajama all the time, but it's like, where's your sexiness? Where is that flirty person? No, it's not something that's just for the young. It's something that you have to invest in yourself. And you see the women that do. There are women that do. They make sure that they dress in a way that makes them feel good about themselves. They take care of their bodies. You go to a class and learn something sensual. I'm learning for the last 2 years how to dance kizomba. Kizomba is this beautiful, sensual partner dance, and that's how I met the love of my life. And really, it's about, I had this dream for 5-6 years to learn to dance kizomba, and then I jumped into it, and it's like, it's this, like the way you feel, the way you move, the way it's like, ooh, it's like what it wakes up in me, right? But it's like a lot of people get too old, and then you kind of go like, oh, okay, that's for them. I'm here, and then you become a grandma in your attitude, right? And I'm not talking about age. I know women. There's a woman that I met in Cuba. She was at the time 65 years old, and she walked into the room, and as soon she was teaching me, she was a master of dance, and she was teaching me one on one. As soon as she walked into the room, this one I was like, oh my! She was like dressed sexy and the shades. And she walks in, I'm like, oh my goodness, aging goals right there. Whatever she's doing, rub it on me. But then she started demonstrating stuff. She looked 40. I was like, my jaw dropped. I was like, whoa, what is this woman eating? You know, it's like, and then you learn it's an attitude. And this attitude, you can learn to hold it, you can learn to embody it, or you can give yourself the attitude and the pep talk of how old you are and your past knowledge, and that depends on you, right? So my advice is invest in being a woman, in feeling a woman. I teach, for example, we have an online academy called the Feminine Awakening that costs just $149 a year, and you learn like in it, like the embodiment secrets and stuff. Learn to embody to feel good. You don't have to work with me. There are many things that you can learn in the world. I'm saying I know how to do it. I'm happy to teach it, but it's like the main point of it is like, are you spending time every week in your womanhood learning to connect with that and making sure that it's continuing with you? And or are you disconnecting from your body stayed there and you're there, and there's like a complete disconnect and you're not feeling that anymore?
You know, you are so radiant and you are so empowering and you're so sexy and you've got so much that if more women could be like you and present themselves like you and embrace sexuality and confidence in the way that you have, imagine how different our world would be, right? So many women are just walking around, disconnected, looking at their phones, slumping over, haven't taken the effort to take a shower. They're living in their workout clothes all day long, really lacking that confidence.
And they can learn this. This is the main thing that I really want everybody to understand. It's not something that landed on me. Like, think about it really, where I started. I was 11 years old. My mom was mentally sick. He broke my confidence, my self-worth. I was hyperactive. I got rejected a million times by the whole school. I got bullied. There was such a gap from where I am today. It took a lot of work to get to where I am today. Trust me that this wasn't the body image that I had. I was made fun of all the time because I was a gymnast. I had flat chest. So kids were making fun of me all the time. So I was afraid of my own body. I started in a really minus, 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 minus under the rug kind of like self-worth and body image. And I worked so hard at it. And when I found what I was looking for, I haven't stopped since. And I'm like, nope. and life feels amazing. I mean, I'm full of energy. People go like, how are you full of energy? I'm like, because I'm constantly regenerating energy. I'm not feeling depleted. And it's not to say that I'm not feeling the signs, yeah, I am in premenopause because my my period hasn't stopped, but I already have, kind of menopause signs, and you can tell, and but that doesn't stop me. It's like it doesn't have to stop you. It depends on you how you want to live your life. It's a choice.
Yeah. Well, you're such a master and you're teaching other women how to use these somatic practices to really cultivate that self-love and acceptance. What is your advice to us women who want to lean in and love their bodies more when they're not liking what they're experiencing? As Courtney mentioned before, the weight gain, the fatigue, the memory loss, all of the things. You've talked a lot about really leaning into your seductive side and making you feel gorgeous. And you are such an example of that. How can we as women have more of you as we present ourselves to the world?
Well, a couple of things I would recommend. The first one is meet your trauma. With 70% trauma in adults in the modern world, we're carrying trauma, and do a quick thing with me. Pull your shoulders as high as you can and just sit like that, and let's talk for a minute like this. Right? And is this comfortable? That's the electricity bill. That's the energy that you're spending all the time holding your trauma. Now drop it. Yeah. When you release your trauma, it's that release, right? We're carrying so much inside, and these things are getting triggered. And with where we're going right now in the world and what is going on in the chaos, this is going to trigger the things in us. How does trauma work? Is that we repress something that we couldn't process and integrate back. And as things happen, they trigger these things. And suddenly something that happened in the past feels like it's happening in the present. And with the world that we're going into and the uncertainty that we're going into, more and more is going to get triggered. And with the age and menopause, more of that comes to the surface, because we're meeting more of that when we're unhappy with ourselves. That even comes more to the surface. So the first thing to do is, I specialize in healing trauma somatically from the body. So when I want to work on the embodiment, a lot of the times to get to what we want to embody, to like you're saying, the seduction, the feminine divine, we have to first heal the trauma underneath it. Because as I'm starting to feel like, if you try to move your hands and if they don't move like this, and you suddenly go like, it's big, it's fat, it's like, whatever it is that's going on, a lot of the times it's not a journey, the physical journey on the outside. It's really a journey inside your heart to soften, to feel, to allow whatever is there to come to the surface, to be processed and to release. And we don't know how to do that, because trauma by nature is something that happened to us that we couldn't integrate. So we shut it down to protect ourselves, and we're too afraid to go back there and feel what is there. We need someone to help us, teach us how to feel it in a way that discharges it from the body. I run into a lot of women that complain about the fact, well, I felt it a million times. I already cried my heart about it like a million times. It still hasn't changed. So what's the point in this? The point is that if you don't know how to release it from the body because no one taught you a technique of how to release it, then you're right. You're in a loop, and it's frustrating, it's tiring, it's exhausting. But if you now can take the things that you held inside, I can't even tell you how much I dug in, and you can release that from the body and now discharge it. Now you release so much energy. And now with this energy, now let's build up this like divine feminine in your body. And now your body will be able to hold it rather than self-sabotage it. Because, if your mother wasn't there and she couldn't be there present for you because she was an alcoholic, or she was abused sexually, or whatever it was, or just not present because she was busy working and she didn't give you the love. What are you carrying in your body, and what is getting triggered, and what is basically every time you're coming to divine feminine, which is sitting on motherly love, and you start to feel that, do you start to cry? Because you longed for it for so long and you didn't receive it and your body lacks it, right? To be able to heal the foundation is the key to release the high electricity bill. So now you've got all that electricity to use for something else. And then learn how to reprogram this, to reprogram the mindset, to reprogram your body to a beautiful embodiment where you're just feeling gorgeous and oozing. It's things that you can learn, the same as you can go to a gym and you're now in the gym and you're working and you're going like, I'm sorry to see a six pack. It's not because you went one time, you went like, and now you've got the six pack. But we want to look like and feel this way just by doing something really quick. It's work, but it's work that makes you feel amazing. And when you own it, when you feel it, when you gain it because you worked at it and you've got that ethic, you also feel really powerful. You feel fearless. So it's worth investing in it.
I want to talk a little bit about what you've done in Cuba because I love to dance and like kind of have pushed that to the side, right? So it's sort of like doing some of the things that you love and re-inspire you and invigorate you, and how that really can help change some of these personas we have of ourselves, right? So how to get back into your, bringing sexy back, right? Like, how do I bring my sexy back? But I would love to hear a little bit more about your experience specifically, because now I want to go to Cuba and take your online course.
So one, just know that I do retreats in Cabo Verde now, which is another gorgeous island. And I teach the embodied femininity. I do exclusive trips of like 10 women, and then I teach it.
Sign me up.
Excellent. We'll talk about it later. Cuba was an amazing journey because something really called me to Cuba. I couldn't really explain what was calling me back at the time, but looking back, I can say that what I experienced in Cuba helped heal my body from the trauma, because I discovered there a lot more of the divine feminine, and there were all these amazing mothers who started to kind of like nurture me, and I felt I could receive what I couldn't receive from my own mom in a different way. Cuba was, I mean, I haven't been in a couple of years since Corona, but for me, it was really a place to come to a place where society wasn't driven by material things, and they had more time to go inward and feel and connect, and as a result develop more of their emotional intelligence, and as a result discovered some pretty amazing things that got lost in the world as we were chasing material things and having an owning, and went more inward to emotional and feeling and sensing. If you look at the world, we're thinking more and feeling less, and the work is about coming back home. This new trend of everything being somatic. I've been in somatics for decades, but it's like things are now, everybody's talking somatics suddenly lately. And this trend of going into somatics is because we've disconnected so much from our body and these secrets. These things were, you look back at movies from those eras and you go like, oh, people used to live like this. What is that a big deal? But we don't remember anymore how to do it. One of the classic things that I have to teach people is how to move through uncomfortable emotions. People tag emotions now as negative and positive. Feeling sadness is negative and feeling joy is positive. And then you try to get rid of all the negative and try to keep all the positive, but that's not how the body works. When you know that you're somatic intelligence, the wisdom of your body, there are no negative emotions. If I'm sad, I'm releasing and I'm crying to release it from my body, right? When we look at young kids and you see a young kid, for example, have a tantrum or they're crying, what do? We put them on our chest, we kind of go shh, and we rock. And what we're really doing in that moment, we're feeling with them, and they feel our hearts, and they feel us feeling, and they feel the calmness, and then they calm down, and they're able to release the emotion that was kind of stuck, and they didn't know how to move through it, right? They're able to be with the discomfort till they release. And then after a while, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, they get up, and what do? And then they run and play because now they released it. When we have trauma, that mechanism gets stuck. And what I do in somatic coaching is I teach the body again how to activate that, so that whatever got stuck in the trauma, we can now again process, release, and discharge. And then that's how you get rid of it. Then you can bring all that magical other stuff.
That's so powerful. You talk a lot about emotions, though, and I think we as a society have been taught to suppress our emotions. You look at all of the antidepressants, the anti-anxiety, the SSRIs to suppress that serotonin, that
Numbing.
dopamine, numb, right?
Yeah, and numbing. A million ways of numbing. Numb through shopping, numb through alcohol, numb through sex, numb through food, numb through in any kind of way that you can numb and escape what you're feeling and be somewhere else. Why was COVID so overwhelming for people? Because they had to stop and feel. Exactly that. They had to stop and feel. And they didn't know what to do and how to process what they were feeling. Everything that they've ever repressed came to the surface and people were going crazy. Exactly for that reason.
And now during middle age, I'm talking to so many women, people out there where their childhood trauma is really presenting itself, right? We have not been able to suppress it anymore. It's Pandora's box has been opened. And so we have to dig deeply from within. And there's two ways that we could go. We could shut it down, close the box, or we could choose to really, really heal those wounds.
Here's the really exciting part about that. It's like when you say this, I get so excited. And the reason for that is because that's the time when you can really reinvent yourself. That's the time when you can have that breakthrough. Every time something comes to the surface, we can treat it like, oh my God, that disaster. Or we can go like, oh my God, that's the opportunity if we learn how to meet it, release it, and get to a whole other place where life feels amazing, right? That's the opportunity.
You know, we have a woman on here often who talks about, you know, so much of our childhood trauma and what we've been downloaded in our life is really our core belief system, right? And when our core belief system is feeling met, that's where we feel safe, whether it's healthy or not healthy. And so we as human beings, I think naturally, you know, as a 47-year-old, I have a number of different stories that I've told myself my entire life that make me feel safe because they're all I've known, right? It's sort of that victim cycle. I've been living in that victim cycle because that's easier to live. That's been my survival mode versus really changing that inner dialogue and creating the accountability cycle, and changing that dialogue that we've had with ourselves of what we've learned all of these years. Can you speak about that at all?
Well, I want to actually separate that because I think that you did exactly what a lot of people do, which is you went to the mind and you're talking about mindset and talking about those cycles and it's like, which all of it is true, but there's a whole other aspect that got embedded in you, in your body. So when you're a child, you know, how many children do you know or parents that they kind of go like, oh my God, where did they learn that? Do I say that? Do I do that? Because kids copy you, right? Everybody goes through that experience where you kind of start to get really aware of what you're doing and saying, because you have a child and they're copying everything like a little sponge that takes it in. We learn and we receive things somatically through the body that are not even being said. Of course, there's also what's been said. That's a whole other damage. But there's a lot of stuff that goes into you. And I work also with generational trauma. So when you see something here in your work and you go like, wait a minute, let me check what happened in the generation before and generation before, and then you go like, oh my goodness, here we go, generational trauma passing through, right? What got transferred through the body, like for example, you're talking about those limitations of what you've learned about yourself and as a result kind of limiting you. So whatever you felt is not what you believe is possible for you. And here's the really interesting thing, which is why I'm kind of shifting you more to the body and to somatic from the mind, is that how many people do you know that actually know what's not working? They can even explain to you exactly what it is. They can tell you the cycles. They can tell you what's bothering them, and they still don't know how to shift it, even though they know all of it, right? Because it's in the body. And what, you know, I'm with a lot of clients where we reprogram that in the body, and it's a feeling that you have to receive. If it got embedded because someone made you feel that there's a limit, that they couldn't love you, they couldn't be present, they abandoned you, let's say, and you constantly felt abandoned and you became a victim of that. Now, even though you understand that and you can't shift it, now someone has to give you a feeling by receiving you and being there with you, where you start to feel what it feels like when someone has room for you emotionally. Your body has to feel it to fix it, to reprogram it. It's only by feeling with you and helping you reprogram that's frequency in the body starts to change. If that frequency doesn't change, you're looking, it's like a sonar that goes beep, 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 and you're calling in the same kind of people, you're calling in the same kind of relationships. And then you go like, my mother abandoned me. And then you go like, my husband abandoned me. You know, it's like, he's never there. It's like, then you go, oh, here we go. That's the generational trauma, right? Because what got embedded is like, I don't believe that someone can be there for me. I don't believe that someone, because if my mother couldn't show up for me, how could someone else? And then you're picking those people. It's exactly the point. But until you reprogram that in the body, it doesn't matter how much you understand it. Talk therapy is not enough. It's great. It's a great tool. You know, I've done a lot of therapy before I got to the somatic, but it didn't shift everything. It took me 30 years to figure out what got messed up and how to fix it for me, first of all, to heal myself before I understood what needed cracking. And a lot of people that come to me, for example, they come and they don't trust. The first thing I have to do is rebuild their trust, because they go, look, I tried a million things. Everybody tells me they can do it and nothing changes. And they are ready to give up and they think that something's wrong with them. And you go like, no, look, you haven't been in the right place. These kind of things are really hard to crack and it takes decades. You know, I started the company because it took me 3 decades to figure it out. Why should people have to run another 3 decades? If someone already did the work, then I have to basically work with them and show them what can happen, what's different. And when they start to feel it through the body, like, oh my God, you're right, this is different. You're actually shifting it. You know, someone who works with me one-on-one in 3 months, their whole nervous system changed. They're getting completely reprogrammed. They're like doing a 180 in their life That's something that it's like you want to change it at the root, at the core, not something that you're just thinking about and it sounds nice, but something that's going to change your life from one end to the other. I do a healing program of 3 months where we're doing five weeks of healing the nervous system, and then 5 weeks of this is an online program of embodiment. You have to see the changes. When I do these kind of programs and I design them, first I understand the transformation arc, but I also test it with the clients. We do middle of the point, we check how they're doing, end of the point, we're constantly benchmarking, constantly improving from their feedback to make sure that there's impact. It's not about selling programs. It's about transformation. Are we really transforming lives? That's what really matters.
Gosh, I feel like I'm definitely going to sign up for this because
Me too.
society constantly is pushing us down and telling us sexuality is not going to get you anywhere in life and you need to just be quiet in the corner. And how I feel like how can us women reconnect with our sexuality and sensuality and have that shift our mindset to really establishing a reconnection internally. So maybe can you dig into a little bit more of what you're offering on this 3-month journey and how being connected with each other, movement's amazing. How are these things really changing and transforming us?
So let's start with the fact that when I look at you both and I look at when we started to call in out, you're feeling more uplifted, right? You're feeling better. You're feeling more energized. And now I'm doing it in the call, but the trick is for you to learn how to do it, right? I don't believe that it's about making you dependent on me. My job is for you to fire me at one point because I did a great job because you're standing on your own. And when clients fire me at the end, I go thank you. Great. It's not about codependency. It's about you being able to activate that. I learned a long time how I came to this place and there were people that knew how to activate it, and it took me a long time to learn how to activate it myself. That's the trick. Right. So when I'm doing, for example, the 10-week program, the first 5 weeks, I'm kind of creating an engine for you. And in that engine, I'm teaching you in small groups that work together on a regular basis in live sessions how to do the healing process together and meet one another and help. Why? Because I want that engine to be something in your life that continues way beyond the program. We need resourcing, right? If I'm resourcing now, can you learn how to resource yourself? If people want to come and work with me on a deeper level, there's also a possibility to do one-on-one. It's not a problem, but I want to teach you not how to do 5 sessions going, it's not enough. What do I do now? How do I teach you so that you learn what we need to do at a level that's that's needed, not at the level that I'm doing that, at the level that you can hold it, that's beautiful, that heals. At the midpoint when I do calls with them and I check how they're doing, I go between 1 and 10, how healed do you feel you are? We hear how much is it, not how healed, how much do you feel that this is really healing your trauma? They go 7, 8, 6, you can, and that's after 5 weeks. That's phenomenal, right? So now if I teach you about this and you're together and you can learn and you can kind of practice on, now that can continue way beyond the program. Then we set the foundation because, I have a program, for example, called, we're going to do it next year, the Divine Connection. And in the Divine Connection, it's a program in Lisbon where we teach you through Kizomba dance how to connect with your divine connection, create intimacy, and for relationships. So people want to go, oh, I want to do that one. That's exciting. You see it, it's delicious. But if you don't do the inner work, if you're coming with your trauma and it's going to explode all over the place, where are we going to get to in that program? You need to do the inner work. Everybody wants the magical stuff, right? But it's the foundation that allows for it. So for me, when we want to do, for example, the embodiment work in that online program, the 5 sessions, if I don't first deal with your trauma and teach you how to move through the things that are getting triggered when you're going to come to the divine energy, when you're going to learn how to sit with your elegance, it's going to bring out issues, for example, that have to do with self-worth. Because this elegance sits on self-worth. So if there's something that conflicts, it's going to come to the surface. So the embodiment flashes out things. Now we need a tool to be able to, in that moment, release it. And that gives us what you said, Dawn, before, that ability to turn that moment into a transformation rather than a place where you go let's shove it down, numb it, and pretend like it's not there. No, let's now bring it to the surface, but learn how to release it. So when we're doing 5 weeks of foundation like this, learning how to process and release, by the time you get to the embodiment work, you're ready. You're ready to face the things that will come up. You have more resilience. I talked before about seduction. I talked about seduction resilience. When you want to seduce, when you want to have that power to seduce, you have to be able to pull to yourself. And if someone says no, go okay. not now. And not go like, shit, that means I'm not worthy. Like, damn, I knew it. I knew no one would ever be there for me. You know, if you don't have rejection resilience, you can't seduce. And again, it's not about going to a bar and saying, hey, you know, it's not about that. It's about you having that power to feel that great about yourself because you feel such high worth and such proud in who you are because you're so, this is what I've learned in Cuba, being so rooted in your self-worth and in your pride. You know, they said mothers, Cuban mothers, they teach them to be in front of the mirror and they go like, they stand like this every morning when they start their morning, go like, I am beautiful. I am a woman. And it's like they play with the mirror. And sometimes I see my Cuban friends, like dancer friends, and you see them on Instagram and they're in stories and they're like, and they're flirting with themselves. And I know that it's what their mothers taught them. I'm like, yeah, you know, it's so beautiful because from a young age, they've learned to appreciate their own self worth. And here's a little tip I want to leave for everybody. When you hear the word pride, a lot of people think pride is a negative thing. And why do we think that pride is a negative thing? Because past generations wanted to be humble. So what did they do? They taught us that they confuse between pride and arrogance. Pride, you're just feeling good about yourself, about your values, who you are, what you've done, what you've achieved. Arrogance is when you think that that makes you better than somebody else. But they didn't want you to become arrogant, so they told you not to be proud. But pride is something different. So we're so afraid to feel pride. But pride gives us emotional anchors. When you can anchor in something that you feel so good about yourself, you're anchored. So I teach that, how to anchor that in yourself, and then from there, you're feeling rooted. So if you have rejection resilience and you're rooted in your anchors, and now you could bring out your sabrosura and learn how to seduce, but you've healed your foundation. Yeah, I know, right? Like when I touch my partner with a sabrosura, you see him go like this. Like he loves the sabrosura. He loves it. You just like, I give him like sabrosura. He goes like, I don't know what you're doing. I've never experienced anything like it, but he melts. And he's very manly. He's a very manly man, but he melts.
I love it. I mean, no wonder you've been on Oprah. If I were a betting woman, I would say that Oprah should probably have you on speed dial, or maybe she does. You know, I
Well, I
mean,
haven't been on her show. I've been on Oprah Daily. Oprah Daily
yes.
is the Prince stuff. I definitely would volunteer to be on her show.
Well, hey, Oprah, if you're listening to Hot Flash Health, get this woman
Yes.
on television.
We're going to put out some positive intentions for you.
And here's one thing that I think is really important to remember, that no one would think that's important, but I think that's the key to all of this. You know, we started with menopause and we started with body image and but at the end of the day, why are we trying to hide all these signs of age and freeze ourselves to the age of 20? We're doing that because we're afraid to meet death. And when we're starting to get the ages of wrinkles and growing older, then we start to meet death. But the truth is that those signs, when we embrace them, prepare us gradually for death. You know, my dad is now 83 years old, and, you know, I lived 17 years away in Canada, and every time I would come, it would be such a big gap. And at the beginning, there weren't video calls, so I wouldn't see him for a long time, and then I would see him like, whoa, like the change. And it was shocking, you know, especially as the years went by, it was bigger in that sense because he got older. And while someone who's there and sees it all the time, it's just normal, right? When people are around us and they age, we don't go like, oh my God, you're so much older now. It just happens gradually. Why aren't we allowing ourselves to age in such a graceful way too? Right. And that's our relationship with ourselves of aging, of allowing ourselves to get used to that little by little till we get there. Instead, we open the gap more and more and more. And that becomes even more shocking. We're just trying to avoid the fact that we're all going to die. You can't avoid dying. You're going to die. Then start to prepare for it. I have a friend, a really good friend of mine, one of my best friends, and she's studying Buddhism. And she keeps talking about the lessons about how they're meeting their death. And she talks about how it's the most liberating experience she's ever had is to not be afraid of her death and meet those feelings and these things way ahead of time where she's just not afraid of it because she's doing work with it, right? And most people, if you say death, they already left the conversation to eat something, you know, just not to touch it. So why don't we start embracing the very thing that scares us the most about those wrinkles? It's not about what we're looking like. It's about what it means to age that's really underneath it. And then that gives us peace. So we can close the eyes at the end and relax calmly into it and not look like, you know, like you died suffering. Adian.
What beautiful words of wisdom you have. We are so,
Thank you.
My beautiful mom has always taught me to lead with a grateful heart, and that will lead to a very fulfilling life. And for that, we're so grateful for your beauty, for your wisdom. How can our listeners find more of you? I know Courtney and I will certainly have you on speed dial. How can we open up your beauty and gifts of wisdom to the world?
Yeah, so first of all, I left a gift for everybody at somaticgift.com. So we have free masterclasses. We've got beautiful things there waiting where people can just come and experience the work for free and then start to feel what it does, because somatics are something that you need to feel it and not just think about it. So somaticgift.com. I'm always on Instagram. That's my favorite platform. And I've actually created a body wisdom community, and in it I share a lot of things so people can come and join that, and I take them behind the scenes and I share stuff and beautiful insights. And of course the website, it's the Power of Somatic Intelligence.com. You can find out about everything that we're doing. Reach out, book calls with me for whatever interests you. I'm happy to jump on calls. And I usually, when someone wants to work with me, I jump on a call, an introductory call. We kind of talk through, we see if it's a good fit. I really want people to come when they're ready. Sometimes people come and go like, we're not ready yet. They come back later. That's completely okay. But we start to build that relationship. Come and join the Feminine Awakening membership that gives you a whole year with us, where you've got the pre-recorded programs, 2 lives with me a month, a whole community and circle, my team with them, like a whole year with us for learning how to embody the femininity, how to create that resilience, how we heal trauma, and so much more. So there's really many, many ways to come and join us in whatever way feels right.
Thank you for making it so accessible to many women. If only more women knew about you. So that is our promise to you today, to spread the beautiful wealth.
Yes. And go on one of your retreats or two, because I definitely am excited.
Amazing. And now we're also doing ayahuasca retreats. That's a
oh
new
my
thing.
gosh,
In Peru.
We
Yeah,
have to
language.
let's have a follow-up on that one, because we have so many women who we talk to who are really interesting in exploring that more.
Yes.
So you will be back.
The next
my
one
friend.
is in July.
Okay. Ready. Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, thank you again from the bottom of both of our hearts. You've shared so much wisdom here. We love your energy. I'm going to take this and release and keep on breathing and knowing that I've got my sexuality and sensuality in there somewhere, Did some dance moves this weekend, so I got to get that.
Thank you so much for having me today. I'm very grateful for the beautiful interview that you led through questions, and that's
Yeah. Well, that's a wrap on today's episode. Remember, menopause may be a wild ride, but together we've got this. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at Hot Flash Health. Follow our amazing guest as well. We will have her Instagram and everything she talked about at the bottom of the episode. And be sure to stream and subscribe to us. We're on all of those lovely platforms that you listen to us, YouTube, Spotify, Apple. Share your thoughts with us. Share it with your girlfriends. We love hearing from all of our fabulous listeners. And until next time, stay sassy, stay fabulous, and keep those hot flashes in check. And that's a wrap on today's episode. Remember, menopause may be a wild ride, but together we've got this.
And don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok at Hot Flash Health.
Stream and subscribe to us on any of your favorite listening platforms like YouTube, Apple, and Spotify.
And of course, share your thoughts with us. We love hearing from our amazing listeners.
And until next time, stay sassy, stay fabulous, and keep those hot flashes in check.
Yeah, girl.
Woo!